You know, we've had Lord Jamar on Vlad TV a lot. One of the other things that he said is that homosexuality has no part of hip hop.
Within hip hop, within our parameters, to keep this hip hop strong, we don't wear skirts. We don't ride around trying to get our dick sucked from fucking transvestites and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, that's the shit that weakens hip hop. You know what I mean? Like, you can be gay in your own private life if that's what you want to do. Just don't bring it into hip hop. That's all I'm saying. Like, I'm not hating on the gays. I'm not homophobic. I don't have the mental disease.
Well, you got all type of people out there with all type of things, whether they be gay, straight, or whatever's out there, and they do their different style or whatever they doing on the planet. So you don't know what styles of hip hop or what people are doing. Whatever they do behind a closed door, that's to each and all of them. So I couldn't say what that is. That's just saying like that ain't got nothing to do with Christianity, Islam, or Judaism. Ain't got nothing to do with whatever politician or whatever's happening out there. So you cannot say who's what and who's what.
Okay, I mean, as one of the founders of hip hop, do you see like an outwardly gay rapper coming out and being accepted by the hip hop community?
I couldn't even say. You have to look online to all that to see who's a gay rapper, who said that they a gay rapper and out there rapping whatever they rapping to.
One there. One on my back there. You see it?
Okay.
One there, one under there. A few.
Oh, so you got stabbed all over your body?
Yeah.
There ain't no lose or gain from that, you know what I mean? So, I don't see no reason to lie.
Yeah.
Punch little Quentin in his mouth. He seemed like a nice guy, man.
In Bronx, the Savage Skulls, and further down by Stephens Avenue, the Ghetto Brothers, Black Pearls, those birds, man. But that was alright.
We out here chilling, man. They probably still over there doing that same old mess, man.
They probably crazy stuff. In our whole kingdom, Black Spade area, Savage Spades. Nobody come mess with the Spades area.
That was a good thing about it. We used to always go to them. We ain't let nobody
ain't nobody come over here, especially in Bronx River, the home of God. Nobody mess with Little Vietnam. It's where all the Black Spades and Reapers was from. And Power. And the Immortals.
Got a different Monroe look though, man. That's cool. It's be all grassy up, man. It's all Dust Bowl.
Yeah, it look wild now.
Critical. But as you get older, man, you can just see the beauty from up there, man. You just see this is your town.
Yeah, the Bronx is definitely number one. Only one. Everybody talk about Bronx is whack and dirty and stink. Looking from here, the Bronx is definitely on the one.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I heard a lot of Zulu Nation running in Monroe now. A lot of Zulu Nation in Monroe and Stevenson and in all these housing development projects. Soon as Zulu Nation gonna take over the world.
There are some names that echo louder after they're gone. On April 9th, 2026, in the early hours of the morning, a man who helped shape an entire culture took his final breath. Afrika Bambaataa. To some, he was a visionary, a creator, a man who turned chaos into rhythm, but to others, he was something else entirely. Because behind the music, behind the movement, there were whispers, and those whispers refused to stay buried. Before the music, there was war. The South Bronx in the early 1970s wasn't a birthplace of culture. It was a battlefield, blocks divided, crews at odds. Violence wasn't rare. It was routine, and in the middle of it all, a young man named Lance Taylor. Not yet a legend, not yet a symbol, just another figure navigating a city that demanded strength or submission. He rose through the ranks of one of the most feared street organizations of the time, the Black Spades. But something shifted, because while others saw territory, he saw potential. And in 1971, a meeting took place, a fragile peace, a truce that would ripple through the Bronx, not ending the violence, but slowing it, creating space for something new to emerge, something no one fully understood yet. Out of that space came sound, raw, unpolished, alive, Block parties replaced battlegrounds. Turntables replaced weapons. And the same energy that once fueled conflict now fueled creation. Afrika Bambaataa didn't just play music, he engineered experiences, digging through crates, blending genres that weren't meant to meet, funk with rock, salsa with electronic pulses, even television themes twisted into something unrecognizable. And then, in 1982, a track dropped that would change everything. Planet Rock, a collaboration with the Soul Sonic Force, built on the futuristic sounds of Kraftwerk, cold, mechanical, outer-worldly. It didn't just push boundaries, it erased them. And just like that, hip-hop wasn't local anymore. It was global.
I've been showing your thing. Yeah, man.
I'll buy your watch.
This is Bio. This is the guy that did all the graffiti up there. They didn't want to do all the graffiti.
He did it. Yes, sir. How you doing? Welcome. Fine. Thank you. Bye. Man, I'll buy your watch. Cause I was here at 2 o'clock and I didn't see nowhere. Right here, wait for you right here. Oh, damn, let me hang out.
Just show them something.
What you filming for?
Mighty D.
Wow, feeling so good. Was a show like a TV? Yeah. What you showing them over here, man?
They just want to go in the park and see the kids playing ball and,
Everybody doing their thing?
Yeah.
There you go, harassing somebody. Man, they gonna get you, man.
Man, what's up?
Good, bro.
They in there sitting.
Don't feel that much. Don't feel that much. Don't feel that much.
Anything more, man?
Hello.
Zulu.
Yeah,
Sorry, young lady.
y'all don't need. Y'all don't sound like y'all don't need. That's messed up.
I'm let you say hello.
No, but you act like you don't know.
No, I came in. That's why I was told him to film. One of the first queens. Originals.
What channel?
This is for the German, all over Europe.
For real. Nice. I'll be hearing you on the radio too. Yeah.
You gotta tell me about it because he's yelling your name on it.
Oh, that's nice. Take care.
But music wasn't enough, not for him. In 1973, he made a decision that would define his legacy. He transformed the gang into something else. Universal Zulu Nation. Not a crew, not a set, an idea. A movement built on 4 pillars: DJing, MCing, breaking, graffiti, and above all, peace, love, unity, and having fun. To thousands of young people, it was more than a slogan. It was an escape, a way out of cycles that had trapped generations. And for years, it worked. Violence slowed. Creativity exploded. A culture was born. And Afrika Bambaataa stood at the center of it all. A godfather, a pioneer, a symbol of transformation. A voice broke through the silence. A man stepped forward, then another, then more. Allegations, serious, disturbing, claims that reached back decades into the very years when the culture was being built. They describe something different, not unity, not peace, but manipulation, control, abuse hidden behind mentorship.
All right, so you're going through all this, and then you meet Afrika Bambaataa, who's the founder of the Zulu Nation, around age 13?
12.
12.
Actually, I didn't meet him at 12 years old. I knew the man my whole life.
Okay, well, you would come by and...
Yeah, we grew up in the same neighborhood. So I would see him every single day of my life.
So Planet Rock came out in 1982. And that was his biggest song. And that became, you know, kind of a staple in hip hop. I mean, it's gotten sampled hundreds of times and so forth. So by 89, he was already a hip hop superstar. He had already toured around the world and so forth. I would assume he wouldn't be living in the same place he grew up in.
That's where you would assume wrong, because you have to understand something. He's never left the hood, ever. He may have had like, for example, he had a house in Connecticut, but he's always kept himself like around the village where he was able to deal with all the children. Like literally, you got the community center right there in the middle of Bronx River. And then you have the building that he was from, whether it was 9-5 or 1609, because it was the both of them. And then, you know, back when I was going to high school, and, you know, Harry S. Truman, he also had an apartment over in Mark Terrace. So he kept himself close where he was able to have kids come to his house. He's never left the hood.
Okay, and the Zulu Nation, I mean, that was a very powerful entity in hip hop. You know, apart from Afrika Bambaataa, of course, I mean, Fat Joe, I think, is Zulu Nation.
Queen Latifah.
Queen Latifah,
Q-Tip.
I mean, Run DMC.
Everybody.
Public Enemy. You know, I mean, I remember Night of the Living Bassheads when Chuck D was like, here it is, bam! And then there's Afrika Bambaataa in the music video.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, me being a hip hop head, I mean, I bought Planet Rock on 12-inch. You know, I remember the importance of Afrika Bambaataa. I've even interviewed him a couple of times. And I remember, I think it was our second interview when, you know, I was doing a lot of interviews with Lord Jamar at the time, and he was talking about how, you know, from his point of view, homosexuality has no place in hip hop and so forth. And I brought that up to Bambaataa. This was before the accusations. And he had a very sort of uncomfortable answer. He kind of dodged the question.
I saw that. That's
you
what
saw that, right?
Yeah, that's what he said, that little crazy nonsense out of his mouth, and I just laughed to myself, like, because I knew what he meant. I knew what his mind was at. Yeah, he just for some reason, will never come out of the closet because, you know, first of all, he's part of the Moorish community. You know, so I don't see him ever coming out the closet admitting to who he is.
Behind opportunity, behind trust, names surfaced, stories aligned, and suddenly the narrative shifted. What was once seen as guidance was now being questioned. What was once seen as protection was now being re-examined. And the man who helped define a culture was now at the center of something far darker.
Definitely hurting, and it was definitely crazy to hear this now when I was doing so much other work in the community at the time.
A Fox 5 exclusive, one of hip-hop's founding fathers speaking out for the first time on television about shocking child abuse allegations. And the list of accusers is growing, and they all tell similar stories.
Afrika Bambaataa being accused of sexually abusing several underage boys decades ago. Lisa Evers sat down with him for an exclusive TV interview to answer the allegations. She joins us now. Lisa.
Well, Stephen Derry, Afrika Bambaataa brought peace to violent city streets, but now he is accused of a crime that is tough to forgive: molesting boys. He sat down with me for this exclusive interview, and no questions were off limits.
Have you ever abused any underage boy?
I never abused nobody. You know, it just sounds crazy to people to say that here you abuse me. You know, my thing is, you know all my people back then. You know the hundreds of people that been around me. You know, if something like that happened, why you never want to? None of them.
Party people, they don't get funky.
It also sounded crazy to many fans of his 1980s hit song, Planet Rock, considered one of the all-time greatest in hip-hop. Since then, as the founder of the hip-hop cultural organization Zulu Nation, he's been a visiting professor at Cornell and invited to speak around the world. He told me the accusations came as a shock.
What is the motivation?
Yeah, what is the motivation? What is the agenda?
Do you think there is an agenda there?
It's hard to say. You know, you don't know what many of these people are thinking, what is behind it. Some parts I've seen, like it could be shake-ups, you know, certain things people might have wanted.
Bambaataa's chief accuser, Ronald Savage, is now 50 years old. He claims in 1980, when he was 15 and under the age of consent, playing hooky led to his first sexual experience with the hip-hop pioneer and was followed by at least 4 other abuse incidents.
I didn't have nowhere to go, so I had his number, and I called him, and he paid for the cab for me to go to his house.
Savage claims through therapy he came to understand he was abused and became aware of other alleged victims.
I couldn't believe it. I was confused, I was a little nervous, you know, and I was just wondering, like, the other guy coming into the room and like, what was they gonna do to me?
I asked Bambaataa what he would say to Savage.
The brother knows the people who he came around in my group with and know that he wasn't in my presence, less among those people, and he needs to go back and speak to those people who was part of our organization and deal with them and stop all this type of craziness that they've been trying to put by attacking me.
And you never touched him inappropriately?
I ain't touched this brother whatsoever.
The allegations have set off a social media firestorm and ignited feverish debate. Since the alleged incidents happened so long ago, no criminal charges can be brought. And there have been no settlements or payouts, says Bambaataa attorney Charles Tucker Jr.
Have there been any criminal charges filed against Afrika Bambaataa at all?
Absolutely not. Not today, not yesterday, not the day before yesterday, not ever.
The question now is what happens next? Can we ever find out the truth of what really occurred? And are there other victims out there who have yet to come forward? Or is this a case that will only be tried in the court of public opinion? Here's what both sides have to say. In our exclusive interview, Afrika Bambaataa emphatically maintained he is not a sexual abuser.
Do you feel now you are among that group of people falsely accused?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, there's always been things in our community where you falsely accuse people, or people have sit in the prisons, you know, political prisoners and groups like that, that they wait to 10, 15, 20, even 30 or 40 years before they find out that this person was railroaded.
But Ronald Savage believes there are more victims out there and that the statute of limitations should be eliminated.
No one can tell anyone when they're ready to let stuff out. And especially if you haven't went through what I went through and other people went through. It's like, how dare you?
The fallout was immediate. Organizations distanced themselves. The very movement he created began to separate from him. Public statements, apologies, reconstruction. But the damage was already done. In 2021, a civil lawsuit was filed. Allegations of repeated abuse, of trafficking, of years stolen from a childhood that never had a chance. And in 2025, a judgment was handed down, not after a trial, not after testimony, but by absence. He never showed up, never responded, and the court ruled against him. Still, he denied everything until the very end, calling the accusations lies, attempts to destroy his legacy. But by then, the question wasn't just about truth, it was about trust, and whether that trust had ever been real.
Were you close to Afrika Bambaataa?
But we all grew up together. Now, I'm not saying we was close because, see, what it was back then, it wasn't like it was beef, but it was always competition. So Bam was the competition. We had healthy respect for him because, we had the Zulu Nation. You would do the anniversary. We would come, we perform, so we wasn't necessarily close, but we traveled the same circle. So we was good.
I mean, when you fast forward years later, when you hear about the accusations of Bambaataa, about the molestation charges and everything else like that, what's your take on that?
Well, I mean, it's not like people didn't know, or it's not like it was something that was unknown, in other words. But it was just
Really?
something that was like, maybe hip hop's best kept secret or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so you knew, and you saying everyone pretty much knew that Afrika Bambaataa was gay.
It is what it is. I mean, you got people that would deny it. You got people that would say they don't know. I'm saying everybody knew it, so it was all right there. So, I mean,
Well, I mean, being gay is especially these days, is perfectly acceptable, not a big deal. But messing with underage boys is something completely different.
Well, you see that part about it, you would have to interview him.
April 9th, 2026, around 3 a.m. in Pennsylvania, Afrika Bambaataa died, complications from cancer, just days before his 69th birthday. And with his passing came a wave of reflection. Some remembered the music, the innovation, the culture he helped build. Others remembered the accusations, the unanswered questions, the stories that never fully found closure. So what remains? A legacy divided, a name that built something powerful and may have broken something just as deeply. Because sometimes the loudest sound isn't the music, it's the silence that follows it. And in that silence, the truth still waits. All right, y'all, there y'all have it, man. That's the crazy story of Afrika Bambaataa. Hey, man, get in that comment section. Let me know what y'all think, man. Drillers and trappers, we outside trapping and drilling 247. Don't go nowhere. Watch that next video. Gang!